Now, recently, there was a book I read to you about a dog named Daisy had a ball. There were no words in that book. This book, on the other hand, has a lot of words. For some of you, that's going to be a stretch. You're going to have to work hard to sit still and listen for a longer time. So let me challenge you. Do that. Be a good listener. Pay close attention. And remember, you can always look at the video twice. You should look at the video twice before you answer questions. Annette Bly, author's name comes first. And what comes after 1,000? That's a different way to spell Annette. Flyleaf, Annette Bly. And what comes after 1,000? Otto and Lisa are special friends. Otto may be old, but he can still spit cherry pits, make slingshots, and grow delicious raspberry. That tells us something about Otto. He and Lisa share a fascination with numbers. Tell stories of brave Native Americans, Indians some people call them, and gaze at the stars. But when Otto gets ill, now my light's on that where you can't really see it. Let's see if we can adjust that light a little bit. I'm still making a shiny place. I'll just hold the light. But when Otto gets ill and dies, Lisa struggles to understand. Her rage, confusion, and mourning are reflected in the heartwarming illustrations as she slowly comes to understand that while people die, memories last forever. Oh. And what comes after 1,000? From the beginning, asks Otto. From the beginning, Lisa shouts. Lisa shouts because Otto doesn't hear very well, and he can't stand it when people whisper. Otto starts from the beginning. 1 is for Lisa. There's only one of you in the whole wide world. 2 is for our 2 emergency cookies, Lisa continues. And 3 is for the 3 very best days of the year. My birthday, your birthday, and Christmas. 4 is for the 4 corners of your favorite pillows, Otto goes on. And 5 is for our legs, plus your cane, adds Lisa. All our legs, plus my cane. Did we get any further? 6 was for the tomato plant stakes in your garden. 7 was for the days of the week. And 8 was for the missing tines in your rake. Those are the teeth of the rake. He's got 8 missing tines. Did you forget all those? We went all the way up to 16, Lisa sighs. Then suddenly she jumps up and says, I really want to finally be able to say 1 is for a bullseye on the 10 buffalo. She takes the slingshot down from its hook and marches off. She has a 10 buffalo. I guess they shoot slingshots at it. Lisa really wanted a bow and arrows, the kind where the arrows have suction cups so they'd stick to things, but Otto thought arrows might be easily lost in the garden. So he'd made the slingshot for Lisa instead. He made it. Oh, I wonder if he's the grandfather. Lisa can shoot pretty well with the slingshot, but she still can't hit the 10 buffalo. She tries again. So, did you knock out the buffalo? Otto asks when she comes back. No, Lisa grumbles, and I tried at least 1,000 times. Otto has an idea. He grins slyly and carefully takes the 2 emergency cookies out of his pocket. Olga baked these. Now there's a new character, Olga. Maybe that's the grandmother. Maybe that's his wife. Olga baked these, he said. I snuck off with them. Oh, thank goodness for emergency cookies. They always help. Look at those grins. Soon it gets dark. Otto and Lisa watch the first stars appear, one after the other, until the whole sky glitters and gleams. How many stars do you think there are? Lisa asks. 1,000, Otto answered, or maybe even more. Did you hear my cat push up against the door? He wants to come in. And what comes after 1,000, Lisa wants to know. 1,001, 1,002, 1,003, 1,000. But don't the numbers ever stop? No, numbers never end. That's what infinity means. When Otto rakes the freshly mown grass, it smells sweet and clean. This will turn into good soil, he says. Otto knows everything about the garden. That grass turns into earth on the compost heap, how whole trees grow out of the tiniest little seed, and what color the bees' honey will be. But Lisa can only think about one thing: hitting that buffalo. Today it has to work, she says determinedly. Did you sneak up on it from the right side yesterday? Otto asks. They approach quietly, ducking down the tall grass. Lisa aims the rust-brown rock so it's sitting just right in the slingshot, and then, pow! A perfect shot! Well, I'll be, Otto exclaims. I guess she hit it. I think she hit it. Made a noise, didn't it? One! Lisa shouts. One is for my first bullseye on the tin buffalo. She leaps into the air and with Otto dances a great victory dance. Exhausted, they lie back in the grass and look at the sky. Otto, Lisa asked, how am I supposed to get the dead buffalo to the top of the tree? Otto is confused. Why do you want to put it up there? There's a ladder going up there. You told me that some Native Americans used to bury their dead buffalo above ground in the trees. Otto laughs. No, I told you certain tribes sometimes buried people above ground in trees, not buffalo. I wonder if he's a Native American. I wonder if Otto is an Indian, if he's part Indian. I wonder. When buffalo were killed, it was because their meat was needed for food. They didn't kill them unless they needed to, so they didn't bury them above ground in trees. They ate them. People still eat meat. Did you know that? Anytime you eat meat, it's an animal. Having trouble turning that page. You look like you could use a little break. Olga always says that when Otto looks tired. Otto and Lisa wink at each other and go into the house. There's Olga. 15, 16, 17. Lisa and Otto count together as they spit the cherry pits onto their plates. They're spitting. Exactly 17 each, Lisa beams. Otto, where do numbers come from anyway? Otto thinks for a long time. Finally he says, I think they're just inside of us. There's a thought. There's my light. My reading light. Used to have a reading hat. Now I've got a reading light. Otto hasn't gotten out of bed today. He's tired. Not even the thought of ripe raspberries can lure him into the garden. Lisa picks some for him, but he can't really enjoy them. The next day, and the next day, and the next. He lies in bed, surrounded by pillows, tired, and hardly talking at all. Will you die soon? Lisa asks, stroking Otto's hand. Otto nods. I think so. That's sad. Should we tie you to the top of a tree then? Lisa wants to know. Otto laughs weakly. No, old Otto just wants to be laid to rest in the ground, he says. Then I can slowly turn into the soil, just like the grass. Well, there's a thought. Remember? And someday flowers might even grow out of the earth. Imagine that. He takes a deep breath. Yes, I'd like that. To be close to the sky might be nice. But I'm a gardener. He grows things in the ground. Sometimes Lisa just holds Otto's hand. I didn't know he looked so old before. The cat's sleeping. When Otto dies, it is very quiet and still. Olga holds Lisa tight in her arms, and they look for him for a long time. Is he smiling a little? He looks pale. But this time Olga only says quietly, Goodbye, Otto. And Otto doesn't wink at Lisa. We see him. There's no color. When Otto is buried, lots of people come. Lisa has never seen some of them before. Everyone speaks in hushed voices, and they all look terribly serious. Don't whisper like that, Lisa shouts at them. Otto doesn't like whispering, but the strangers just look at her. She goes into the garden to shoot her slingshot. And guess what? She hits the tin buffalo on her first try. Lisa runs into the house and does her victory dance, but the strangers still just look at her. Otto would have danced with her. Finally, Olga comes. No one understands, Lisa says quietly. Why did Otto leave me? I think she's sad. I would be. You might be sad. I think you just can't see him anymore, she explains. What do you mean, can't see him anymore? Lisa asks. Do you mean he didn't die? Close your eyes and imagine a cake, Olga orders. Lisa frowns. Just do it. Imagine a cake. What do you see? Olga asks. I see a cherry cake with something sprinkled on top and lots of whipped cream. What kind of sprinkles? Candied nuts? Poppy seeds? Rainbow ones? No, chocolate sprinkles, of course, answers Lisa. Olga smiles. You see, she says, the cake is there, even if you can't see it. One by one, the stars come out. Lisa thinks of Otto and their 5 legs in the grass and the 2 emergency cookies. He feels close by. You know, Olga, she says after a little while, Otto is like numbers. He's inside of us. And that will never end. Talk to your folks about that book.